playfully slapped his face in front of his friends and said he was my doggy, but he took it serious, and it happened in a blink of an eye, and I couldn't even understand why I did what I did. In hindsight, maybe slapping him and calling him my doggy wasn't the best move. But at the time, it was just a joke, one that transformed our relationship into something I would have never imagined. Hi, please address me as Caroline. I'm really ashamed of what happened, so I'm posting this from a throwaway account and I need some advice on what to do next. So my boyfriend and I have been together for 3 years now and we're currently living together, except right now. I don't think that still stands, or we still stand, and it's destroying me. I know I have this habit of pushing things a little too far, but it was supposed to be a playful slap and comment. I never thought it would blow up the way it did. See, I had known my boyfriend Ben for years before we even started dating. During that time, I was always the one joking around, teasing him a little, and he'd play along. He wasn't the kind of person to do things on a grand scale. Sometimes he was a bit shy to do certain things, and I teased him about it. Regardless, he always puts on a smile, never failing to laugh at my stupid jokes. And when we finally started dating, it felt like everything fell into place. We were not one of those couples who had this fairy tale beginning. We met through mutual friends, hung out in groups, and one day we just sort of happened. And I like that about us. We were normal. We were real. But that day, the moment I slapped him, everything crumbled before my eyes. The thing is, Ben and I both work at the same company, but we're definitely not on the same level. I'm actually the head of his department, which made things complicated in ways I never expected. From the outside, it's just a job title and a difference in position, but it affected so much more than just our professional lives. When we first met through our mutual friend, he was working at a different branch of the company, but a few months later he was transferred to our branch. We were so excited about it and thought maybe the universe was on our side. I was so happy about the news and I was really looking forward to working with him, and so was he. But then everything turned sour. When we first started working together, I was not the head of his department yet. I got promoted a few months later because my hard work paid off. So when I became the head of Ben's department, I saw it as just another step forward in my career and nothing more. But that's where things started to get tricky. Before Ben resumed at the head branch where I was working, our relationship was serious as relationships go, and we were going to work together. So we decided to take the next big step, which was to get a house together. And no, I don't mean rent. We bought a house together and moved in together. We had this amazing night before the first day at work together, given how excited we were. And before we left the house that morning, I told Ben that he should keep us a secret at work, and he asked why. I couldn't really give him a good reason why I wanted it that way, so I told him that he had just started working there, so we don't really have to rub it on everyone's face, because it would make me uncomfortable if they say anything negative, and also, I'm trying to maintain a clear distinction between my personal life and professional life. He was very understanding and supportive, so he took my words and did exactly as I said. It's not like I was not proud of my boyfriend, I was. Ben is very handsome, and he has a lot of girls drooling over him from day to day, even at work, and that always annoys the hell out of me. The point was, I love the spotlight. I love the attention, and I didn't want that to be taken away from me. I'm also very beautiful, and I really enjoy the idea of people mistaking me for being single at work, and I didn't want to give them any idea of us dating yet. So I also told Ben he shouldn't give us away. If not, he would be destroying our relationship and I'll break up with him. I told him that when the time is right, we would tell everyone so he didn't see any problems with it. He really loved me and would do anything I wanted. So that was how I used that as an advantage to keep his mouth shut. Sometimes during work breaks, we would still share a little of time together, like going to eat, and maybe if we had the chance, we'd talk to each other. But when I got promoted to being his head of department, it became worse. I didn't want him near me at all, but other girls were always trying to make moves at him, and I hated it so much. Maybe it's because the way he dressed, he had a good sense of fashion and not forgetting the fact that he was handsome. So I told him to dial down on his outfits and that I liked and admire him more when he dresses more simple and less fashionable. Even when I said it, it didn't make any sense to me, but to my own surprise, he agreed. As long as it made me happy, Ben was happy to do it. I was being toxic, and I think I knew it, but I always told myself that a little bit of toxicity was necessary to maintain a fun relationship. But I took my power as his boss to a whole different ballgame. Like in meetings, I'd often catch myself being overly critical of Ben's work, and I'm not sure if it was because I expected more from him or because I felt like I had to maintain a sense of authority over him. Or perhaps it was because I wanted to make it appear as though we disliked other, so no one would ever suspect that something was going on between us. Either way, it was stupid, and I could tell it was bothering him. I noticed how he started to withdraw in group discussions, and while he never said anything outright, There was this underlying tension that I couldn't ignore. Outside of work, things weren't much better. I'd find myself carrying the same energy home, talking about work in ways that blurred the lines between our personal and professional lives. There were days when I'd come home frustrated, and instead of leaving it at the office, I'd bring it up, venting about some mistake he'd made or some task he'd left unfinished. It wasn't fair, but at the time I didn't see how it was affecting him. I really tried to maintain a balance, but it was hard. Being in a higher position meant I was constantly under pressure, and the more I tried to separate the two worlds, work and home, the more they appeared to bleed into each other. Our work relationship became a reflection of how we interacted outside of the office, and I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. One day during company break time, I saw him leaving the building with three of his colleagues, all female. They were beautiful Barbie-like creatures that wanted to get their fancy nails into him. Just as they were about to get into the elevator, I shouted at them to hold the elevator open. Ben did that, but I could see the reluctance in his eyes. If I wasn't already furious, I just got to the boiling point with this action. I asked him where he thought he was going, and he answered that they were going to grab something to eat. I was boiling over. I usually was the one who prepared the meals we both take to work. But since my promotion, I didn't have time for that anymore. Plus, I had to eat out with the other top heads to maintain a status while also planting seeds for future favors, backings, recommendations, and promotions. I didn't care that I couldn't make food for Ben anymore. If it meant him hanging out with those witches, I'd have preferred he woke up 2 hours earlier to prepare a meal. And so, in my usual erratic manners, I sparked with overwhelming rage. I accused him of being a lazy worker who spent a third of his time being a womanizer, right there in the office. He told me in response that he didn't have any work left. He had finished everything he needed to do. And that was where I lost it even more. I told him that he had a lazy mentality as well. That if he was done with the job at hand earlier than anticipated, he should request for more. The girls he was with ran off in fear of receiving my wrath. Ben looked at me with contempt and was furious. I imagine he had a million things to say at that point, but he couldn't. He let out a suffocated apology and walked back to his desk. There weren't many people in the office. A lot of people had gone to have their lunch, but that didn't stop the news from spreading. I went to eat with some of the higher-ups, and when I came back at the end of the break, me scolding Ben was all anyone could talk about. After that day, I felt an endless chasm between us. I don't think Ben spoke to me for a week after that. He would wake up very early in the morning before I would and go to work, and he would come back late at night when I had slept. He was burying himself in work so much that I couldn't even find anything to complain about when it came to work. And in the office, he tried his best to avoid me. But I still always found a way to shout at him, to criticize his ideas, and to put him down. But not once did he fire back at me. He would just make sure to apologize and tell me he'd work on it. I think I was drunk on power. This cold treatment and avoiding me went on for almost a month until one day during a meeting, I told him the idea he was pitching wasn't good enough, and that was when the manager who was present shut me down. He said that Ben's idea was perfect and asked Ben to go on. I could feel my intestines twirling up. I wanted to snap somebody's neck. And what made me want to explode even more was when I saw the manager talking and laughing with Ben after the meeting. As though that was not enough, people had started calling me Ben's Bane and Jezebel. Apparently, I was rude to a lot of my subordinates, but I was out for Ben's life. I went to see Ben after his chat with the manager and asked what they were talking about. He told me that their conversation was confidential and none of my business, and I lost it. I told him it was all his fault that everyone was calling me Jezebel. I told him that if he only behaved himself at work, we would all get along. Just then, the CEO walked in with the manager and I wore a big fake smile. He was there to see Ben, but he was glad I was there as well. I switched to my ass-kissing mode, and honestly, I was disappointed that I wasn't the one he was looking for. Besides, why would the CEO of our company want to see Ben? He said he had been taking note of Ben for some time now, but that the last month had shown that he was truly dedicated to the company, the kind of man that put in the extra work and hours, and it was for that reason that they were offering him a promotion, a position higher than mine. My eyes nearly fell out of their sockets. Ben was happy to accept, and I had to pretend to be happy and congratulate him. The manager asked me to join him for lunch, and being the ass-kisser that I was, I followed. By the time I came back from lunch, I was thinking about the best way to ask him to turn down the promotion using my usual manipulative behavior. That was when I saw Ben talking with a few friends. I saw that they were all laughing, and I suddenly switched sweet girlfriend mode. I walked to them, and everyone went silent. I congratulated Ben right there in the open and playfully patted his shoulder. One of his friends asked in confusion, "I thought you hated Ben." I laughed and said no. Then Playful slapped his face and said, "He's my doggy." I was trying to be sweet, but Ben didn't take it that way. With a tense face, he gave me a clear warning, asking me to never try that again in my life. He said I was not special to him, so I couldn't do that. I was taken aback. I tried saying, "But we are." He cut me off by saying that we are nothing, and that I meant nothing to him. I was so mad. To spite him, I suddenly told everyone that we're dating. Everyone was shocked to hear this. I went on to say that the only reason he got the promotion was because I put in a good word for him. But since he wasn't being grateful, he was going to reject that promotion. Ben laughed and said he got this promotion fair and square, and that we hadn't been boyfriend and girlfriend for the longest time. He then frowned and asked if I thought he didn't know. He had found out that I slept with some of the bigwigs for my promotion. Everyone gasped, and even when I tried to deny it, he told me that he knew I was still doing it and that he had pictures. He was about to pull out his phone, but then I fell on my knees and grabbed his hand. With tears in my eyes, I began begging for forgiveness. He wouldn't budge. He felt so insulted. He began recounting everything, how I gaslighted him, and he always tried to let it go, calling it the necessary compromises one had to make for a relationship. But he was the only person that saw this as a relationship to begin with. He said I was a user. I only get close to people to use them for my own personal gain, and that he'd rather die than let himself forgive me. Those words hit me so hard. He asked me to tell the truth about what I was going to tell him after he got the promotion. He knew me and guessed correctly when he said he was sure I was coming to ask him to reject the promotion. I couldn't answer, and it was just clear to everyone that he was telling the truth. With the way I had been behaving at the office, his story sounded more plausible. People looked at me like they wanted to spit on me. Ben called me a poisonous, disloyal, and toxic witch and said he didn't ever want anything to do with me. In tears, I told him that our lives were intertwined. We bought a house together and we were working in the same place, and our jobs would most definitely require us to talk to each other. This was my way of saying that he could never leave me, that we were stuck together. Ben laughed and told me that he was moving to his new big office on another floor, so I would get to see him as much as I see snow in the summer. Everyone laughed at those words, but that wasn't all. He told me that he got a new place, and that he had put the house we bought together on the market. He clearly didn't want our paths to ever cross. I laid on my floor pleading, but Ben just began walking away. I grabbed his feet with the words, "Please. I'm sorry, forgive me. I'll never do it again. I love you." But Ben didn't care how much I begged. He asked me to let go of his leg, but I wouldn't. He told me that I was embarrassing myself more than necessary, that I should simply accept the fact that I was the worst human being on earth and just move on. Ben repeatedly told me to let him go, and each time I didn't listen. I kept begging, but he then looked back at me. His eyes were absolutely blazing with fiery destruction. It was clear to me that I had bitten the lion's tail, and I was clearly number one on his most hated people of all time. With one rigorous pull, Ben pulled his leg out of my hold. I begged him, telling him that I couldn't live without him, and he told me that I should have thought about that when I was being so cruel and thoughtless. With that, he walked away. I could see eyes on me from all angles of the office. I wanted the earth to swallow me. But the next best thing happened. I had a panic attack and fainted, but not before I muttered, "Please, Ben, I can't live without you." The next thing I knew was, I woke up at the hospital with no one by my side, not even Ben. It saddened my heart to know that we don't exist anymore. I really want to get him back. I need him. I promise to make it up to him. Please tell me what I should do. I'm desperate for your advice and help. Update. Hello, I'm here again. The worst has happened to me, and I had to fill you guys in with everything that's going on. Yes, Ben had declared our relationship over, and the breakup hurts more than anything. But it wasn't just the breakup that hurt. It was everything that came after. Days later, after our breakup, I was blindsided by my demotion. The head of the department, which was the position I held with pride, was taken from me. After everything that went down that day at the office, together with that fact that I was exposed by Ben that I had slept my way to the top, the company decided I wasn't qualified for the position, and maybe if I start from the scratch, it will be a good for me, so I'll learn what it means to truly work hard for something. Now, I have to watch Ben every day from below. I sit at a smaller desk in the same office where I used to stand tall, give directives, run meetings, and hold everything together. And now that power dynamic has changed, every day feels like a cruel reminder of what I've lost. Watching Ben ascend with the same confidence I used to love is agonizing. Sometimes I catch a glimpse of him, and for a split second I wish things had never changed. I wish I had never treated him that way. He didn't deserve it. I wish I could still be the one at his side, both in work and in life. It was not just the professional hit that stings. It was also the emotional one, too. There were moments when I can still feel his presence, and it reminds of everything I thought we were. I see him laughing with his coworkers, and the knife in my chest twists harder as I realized I was no longer the source of his happiness anymore, and couldn't even share in his moments. Most time, I try to bury my head in work, but it was impossible to ignore the way people in the office look at me now. They all know everything that has happened between us. They know about the demotion, and worst of all is that they know about him and the breakup. Everyone's eyes are on me now, and they're either pitying me or speaking ill of me. Some even pretend to say sorry as if they all know what it feels like to fall from the top and be forced to watch the person who was supposed to love and care about you rise higher alone without you by his side. I tell myself that I can survive this, that I can rebuild my life and mend my reputation, but the truth is, I feel like I'm drowning. Each day I wake up with a pit in my stomach knowing what it feels like to walk into that office and see Ben ignore me, and people having negative talks about me. There are moments when I wonder if it's all some kind of punishment because I pushed him too hard and I pushed us too hard. I was too focused on being demanding and selfish. I know that now. Sometimes I wish I could just forget it all. Forget the way he looked at me when we first started seeing each other, like I was the only one that mattered. But now I am just invisible. I can't even forget the way he loved me and the way I loved him. It torments me every day of my life. There were days I couldn't bring myself to go to work anymore. It became difficult given what I went through at the office every day. There's a part of me that wants to walk away to quit and leave it all behind. But there's this part of me that has refused to believe that we are over, even when I am barely holding it together. So I keep coming to work thinking that maybe when he keeps seeing my face, he will remind it of what we had before it all crashed, and he will realize how truly sorry I am, and his heart will soften, and he will forgive me and love me back. But then, this happened. I remember the moment so vividly. Ben walked toward me, and for a second I let myself feel hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, there was some light in all of this. My heart leapt, and I was thinking he was coming to offer some support, maybe even some comfort. But then, he handed me a letter and said, "The company thinks you should quit. Your presence is affecting their productivity." Then he walked away before I could even say a word to him. He didn't turn back. I felt the room spin around me and my heart sank deeper. It was like every bit of control, of dignity, had been stripped away from me. This wasn't just a job. It was everything I'd worked for, sacrificed for. And now I was being tossed aside like I didn't matter and like my existence was a hindrance. What is left life for me again? Where do I start from? Thousands of questions with no answer. My heart is broken into a million tiny pieces and I don't know how to go on from here. Maybe one day, I'll move on and stop carrying him totally, but it's hard because everything inside me is falling apart. This is going to be last update, and from my last post I got a lot of hate comments here saying I am an abuser and a manipulator. Yes, I know I did a lot things the wrong way, but I am human, and I'm trying my best to be a better person now. And as much as I would like to agree with most of you that I deserve everything that's happening to me, no one should ever have to go through this. I wish I could address your comments to why I did what I did to him, but I can't. Some things just don't have easy answers, so please move on with your life as I will try to move on with my life. But no assurance given because I am drowning in pain with every second that passes by. Anyways, thanks for reading, and for those of you who stuck with me through this, I appreciate it more than you know. I'm not sure what comes next, but I know life is unpredictable, and all I can do is hold on and hope things get better.